Any last requests, pig?
Yeah, loosen the knot and let me go.
يا حمار! Of course we don't let him go! يلا ابدأ!
Hi, I'm Sophie, and I haven't seen a lot of movies.
Hi, I'm Paul, and I'm here to help with that. And we are
SP Film Viewers.
Summertime calls for a summer blockbuster.
Is it really summer? I just feel like it would be more autumn. I don't know.
What makes you say that?
Because it's called The Mummy.
Are you thinking like
Halloween, yeah.
season? Yeah, you might think from that, obviously, like with like Universal monsters like Dracula and all that stuff. But,
Or is it more going for an Indiana Jones vibe? That is it in like the desert or what?
yeah, Egypt, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Where the mummies are.
action, adventure, fantasy, genre blend.
I've never
So-
seen it.
know.
I don't know anything about it. I don't even know the main person.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, do I know him anything else?
Did you ever watch George of the Jungle?
Nope.
Disney property, no.
No.
So, if you haven't guessed, this is the 1999 movie The Mummy.
Why? How many other mummies are there?
Quite a few.
Oh, is
There's
this
like
like
a
Alien, where there's like several of the
Yeah,
franchise?
but Alien was the first of its kind, really. But obviously, there's the Mummy that's from like the Universal Monsters films, which is like back in the 1930s or whatever.
Oh, so it's like remaking Godzilla constantly, or King Kong.
Yeah, I guess so. In that sense, more like for a modern day audience type of thing. But it's very popular with a lot of people, and one in particular person who we're having as a guest joining us to talk about is one of his favourite films.
You're gonna do this to me again?
Yeah. But also, I would like to point out that from Verbal Diorama also does really like this film as well. But
Well, I do really like M, so hopefully
so
I see what
does
she
that-
sees.
Yeah. I think there's quite a lot of, I would say, like our lead guys. You might be like, ooh, yeah, he's not. Yeah, I know you liked Harrison Ford when you first saw him in there.
Well, I've seen both of them, and if you're comparing Harrison Ford to this guy, I think I'd still take Harrison Ford any day.
I see.
It's just got more of a chiseled jawline.
Chiseled.
I just even said jawline wrong. I think I mixed both of them
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, that's our tongue tied jar.
Yeah. Whew, swooning.
Well, I'll read you the synopsis.
Okay, man goes to the desert, finds a mummy, runs away, Scooby-Doo vibes, the end.
No.
No?
Not quite. At an archaeological dig in the ancient city of Hamunaptra, I don't know if I said that right. An American serving in the French Foreign Legion accidentally awakens a mummy who begins to wreak havoc as he searches for the reincarnation of his long-lost love,
The mummy.
who is called Imhotep.
And he's searching for his long-lost love.
Yes.
Aww. How did he wake up?
You'll watch the film and you'll find out.
Don't you think it's weird that they're called mummies?
Because they're not female, or...
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the mummification wording for that is. Why it's called that? I feel like I should know.
I feel like you would be the one to
Yeah.
know, not me.
But I don't know, it's just not really sort of questioned. Yeah, but I think that's more just because obviously Americans say mommy, don't they? Or mom. But obviously we as British people say mummy, don't they? Or
Yeah, mummy.
Mum.
Or mum.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pronounce it the
Mum.
right way.
That's right.
I don't really know how I feel. I don't think I'm going to hate it, but I don't think I'm going to be like, oh, yes, it's the best one I've seen. But we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so we're going to go watch the film. Next time you'll hear our voices, we'll have our special guest joining us, Sean from Review It Yourself podcast. Been a long time coming for having him as a guest. I've been on his multiple times. So
It's just been rude not inviting him along, Paul.
But I had to have him for this one. Because it would have been Titanic otherwise.
I think I'd have broke his heart with Titanic. It's a good job he wasn't on it, I think.
But he enjoyed that episode anyway, so
That's good.
but go check that out anyway. Right. Okay, we'll be back after watching The Mummy.
That's called stealing, you know.
According to you and my brother, it's called borrowing.
I thought the Book of Amun-Ra was made out of gold.
It is made out of gold. This isn't the Book of Amun-Ra. This is something else. I think this may be the Book of the Dead.
The Book of the Dead. Are you sure you want to be playing around with this thing?
It's just a book. No harm ever came from reading a book.
That happens a lot around here.
Imhotep, Imhotep, Imhotep. And we're back, having watched The Mummy. And we're not alone, as we are joined by two very special guests. I'd like to welcome Sean and Sarah from the Review It Yourself podcast. Hello.
Hello.
Got to put more effort into it than that.
Yeah, I know, just half-assed, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was shocking. Do it again. Start again. Press stop. No, thanks for having us.
Yes, great to have you, and I know this is a favourite film of yours, guys. So, it was good. It only made sense to have you guys as a guest of the show. But before we start getting into things, would you like to introduce yourselves and where they can find you on the social media platforms?
So I'm Sean, and obviously Sarah is my new co-host for Review It Yourself with its brand new logo and its brand new tagline. So it's still the podcast with the sigh, but now it's film reviews for the eternally unimpressed, which I had a little think, and I wanted to make it, I wanted to explain really what it was. So yeah, it's at Yourself Review on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now. We're also on YouTube, and we're on Instagram, Review It Yourself Podcast 2021. And just me and Sarah most of the time, just probably spending longer talking about a film than the film runs for. We've done that a few times, but it's good chat, lots of hand crushing, and you'll get that if you go listen. I'll throw it to Sarah now, because Sarah has a separate channel, How Dare She, where she talks about cryptids and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll throw it to you, Sarah.
Yeah, so as well as being co-host for Review It Yourself, I have a podcast called Weird Horizon, where we typically sort of cover cryptids and paranormal sort of topics in quite a long form format. So it's a little bit different from this, but if you do like the kind of spooky side of things, you can find it as Weird Horizon on Spotify, podcasts, all that sort of jazz, and Weird Horizon on Twitter, X, Instagram, all that kind of jazz. But primarily, you're probably going to hear from me on Review It Yourself at the moment, because it's just a good time. It's nice to talk about films that you like or don't like. But
I've got some great films lined up. We like, me and Sarah found out we've got a very similar sense of humour, and we've got a very similar love of films, like the kind of darker and the grimmer. You know how some people watch films to like really uplift themselves. Me and Sarah Me and Sarah are like, oh, there's a film here about an alien that destroys a whole planet. Let's give this a go. This will be fun. Sophie's face.
I meant to ask, do you enjoy films like the really like morbid ones, like drama things that are really hard hitting, and do you get a satisfaction from watching those films?
I mean, there's some films obviously that are like that, really grim, but you don't do on a podcast. So Schindler's List is an example. It's a great film, but I mean, because you can talk about it, but it's not going to be entertaining. It's just going to be depressing. So
Yeah,
there's just
yeah.
no point, is there? You know, and
No.
then you can't crack any jokes, so it's not going to be very good.
You can try.
But
Yeah.
I mean, you could
Yeah.
try. You could certainly try, because I believe you could joke about anything. But do you really want to put that out there on the internet for future employers to find? You be the judge.
Yeah, true.
Although yes, we do. We're going to do Threads, which is a
Mhm.
cracking. We're going to do When the Wind Blows. Basically, I've got a list of just depressing films. I've thought of another one as well for me and Sarah to do. So yeah, I quite enjoy them, but it's picking and choosing what you do. But yeah, what do you think, Sarah? Because I know I just ramble on, don't I?
No, I agree. Like, I'm not as much of a fan of films that are just depressing for the sake of being depressing. You know, just like the crime ones where it's just like, oh, watch this horrible thing happening to someone for apparently no reason. Not a big fan of that. But the sort of sci-fi side of things, or like apocalyptic, like near future stuff, big fan of an apocalypse movie. And the grimmer they go, the happier I am, to be honest. Just a bit weird, but yeah, we've got some good apocalypse films hopefully coming up. But yeah, I love anything
Well, we're going to
weird.
do Dracula, aren't we? We're going to do Dracula 1958
Hmm.
to coincide with Sarah's unbelievable vampire series, which I've listened to, and it's great. Really, really good. The history of vampires, and really surprising as to where they came from and stuff like that.
Alright, cool. I'll give that a listen. Yeah. But so, in terms of speaking of supernatural stuff, we are obviously going to be talking about The Mummy from 1999, and in terms of this is kind of like I would say well, it is a blockbuster essentially, but it's kind of got a bit of everything really. Guys, it's got some horror, it's got the sort of action tropes of like say Indiana Jones and stuff. I feel like it really borrows from that, but makes it its own thing. And there's a little bit of obviously romance thrown in there as well. So I think all encompassing film really. Wouldn't I guess you guys would agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see. I don't know about you, Sarah, or you guys. I always kick back really hard against the comparisons with Indiana Jones. Like, I can see why people do it,
Mhm.
but it's like it seems a bit of an easy one.
Mm.
It's a bit like, oh, it's like Armageddon and Deep Impact. They're generally about the same thing, but they're so different. Because we've all seen films where it's like that's just Indiana Jones, but by another name. But I think the Mummy's like so much more than that. I just think, oh look, there's a whip in it, or they dress similar. It's like, really, is that all you've got? But yeah, Sarah? What do you think?
Yeah, it's just such a good like all rounder, isn't it? Like you were saying, a little bit of everything, like really good action, but like I said, horror elements, just everything. It's one of those few films that I think most people could get something from it. Like pretty much anyone at any age can get something from The Mummy. I just really love it. I think you don't get a lot of films nowadays that kind of try to be a bit of a blend of everything without it feeling very kind of pandering. But I admit I have kind of a bias towards I'm one of those people who just thinks like, oh, films used to be better, which is probably just an age thing. I get it, but
No, they
it's
did,
such a good
Sarah. They
one.
did. Used to be better. I've had this so many times because this kind of story it wouldn't be done now. And I won't get
Mm.
into the whys of the politics, but they wouldn't do a film like this now. They wouldn't have a heroine that needs to be rescued. They wouldn't have, they just wouldn't do it. It wouldn't happen. But it's such a classic story because obviously it's a remake of the original Mummy in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good film. The music's unbelievable. I've been listening to the CD soundtrack in my car because I'm so cool. And I just, you can see the film when you're listening to it. It's great.
Yeah.
Such a good film. It was always on as a kid, and I can't wait to see it in cinemas as of recording a couple of weeks with my dad. I cannot wait.
Oh, that's cool.
Cannot wait.
Yeah, so that was from an early childhood. Then that's when you guys first watched the film. Like then that's kind of stuck with you since.
Yeah, I would say yeah. I think I watched it when it came out when I was probably slightly too young for it.
Right.
But like a lot of people, you get exposed to a little bit of horror at an early age, and you're just like, yes, more of this, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would say that's probably a little bit like me with like reading like Goosebumps books when I was younger, and so that's sort of a gateway into things. And then this, I don't know if I will have seen it at the cinema or anything like that, but probably caught it on TV a few years after the fact of it coming out. But and being intrigued by it because it's like, oh, this is sort of like light horror elements to it, but like still quite shocking for like a young, like, impressionable teenager, I suppose, to be like, oh, this is cool. This is really like, look what's happening to this guy getting drained and everything like that. You know?
So good.
Awesome. It's but the same with me. I think it was one of those films that was always on, like way back when like Sky Movies first started. I don't even think they were called Sky, whatever like it was like Sky Movies 1, 2, 3, classic, and I think it was always kind of on there. It's always one of those films that was always on as a kid. Like it was, my dad would always put it on. Because I since found out later, and this is I mean, I don't have any kids, and I know Sarah doesn't, but I don't know about you guys, but this is a good parenting tip. So my dad used to do for like me and my brothers and sisters, he used to do like a movie night. We used to love it because he'd get like a cheap box of popcorn from like Morrison's, they coloured, they used to do coloured popcorn. Long story, they don't anymore. What's happened to the world? And he used to like close the curtains because he always wanted you out as a kid. Get out, it's sunny, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And he'd close the curtains. He'd be like, right, here we go, kids, put the film on, and he'd, a little popcorn out, Choc Isis from Aldi or whatever. And then, we'd watch the film, and he'd always be like dozing, and we'd be saying, like, Dad, you're missing it. Oh no, I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm watching. And I only found out like 6 months ago, and I was saying, oh, Dad, we used to love that as a kid. And he said, you daft ass. He said, I used to do it after my shifts. After he'd had like a long shift, he'd put the film on, and he'd have a kip. So that was his. He'd be like, I'll put the kids there, give them a bit of food, and I'll have a kip. Like, so there you go. So nostalgia. But yeah, it was
a
always
good
on.
strategy. I said that is a parenting tip. Just
if you ever want kids to never come in a room for whatever reason, just go, get out. We're talking about Christmas. There's parenting tip number 2. How I'm not dad, I'll never know.
To be fair, I would have definitely fallen for that as a child because I absolutely love Christmas. So anything like that, I would have been sold. Not going to shock yous. This is the first time I've seen The Mummy.
But what did
I mean,
it doesn't shock me, but
it's one of those films that, like, we've had this conversation before. Like, I would kind of really love to be able to watch it again for the first time, like, because I just have so much love for it. So I would be interested to know what you thought about watching it, outside of this just blinkered, like, childhood nostalgia kind of view. Like, does it hold up? Because I would like to know.
It's a tricky one. I think it's yes, because it's got a lovely story. So there's kind of that element to it, which obviously for me, that is something that I would be more kind of lean towards. You've got a bit of action, you've got history, it's educational, you've got kind of all the parts in it. You've got a cat as well, which is a bonus.
It's kind of like our cat as well. He's a pure white cat.
Yeah, he is. So there's that. I think Evie's character I really do enjoy. I quite like her being more like an independent, even though she's kind of a little bit of a damsel in distress. She's not at the same time. So quite like that aspect of her. Am I in love with it? Maybe not. And I don't know why. And I think, look at his face. And I know you were saying don't refer it to Indiana Jones. However, I'm sorry. I think obviously for the fact that I've only recently watched Indiana Jones.
Not too long
ago. That's kind of like my first kind of glimpse of what kind of these films are, where it's an all-rounder family pleaser. And obviously it's got Harrison Ford in them. And he's a lot more dishier than our main lead. So that does make me more appeal to those films.
Slander against our boy Brendan Fraser.
I know, I'm so sorry. Paul does this. He throws me under the bus. He brings in people that really love the film. And then I'm like, I don't really get it. It's all right.
I didn't think I'd have to go to bat for this. And I think I'll try and let Sarah do it because it's going to raise questions. I didn't think I was going to have to argue about who looks better, Brendan Fraser or Harrison Ford, and I am shocked you threw Brendan Fraser under the bus, but I'm probably not the best judge. Sarah, help me out.
No, I mean, again, it might just be personal preference. And I watched Indiana Jones after The Mummy. So, if you're kind of going into it with an image in your brain, I'm watching Indiana Jones being like, damn, if this was Brendan Fraser. Like, I love him. It's just something about him. For me, I think I associate Harrison Ford with like a lot of the darker roles where he's really quite like horribly aggressive, specifically to like women. Like if you watch like Blade Runner, great film.
I haven't seen that.
Oh
no, we haven't covered that either. But
It's a great
Yeah.
film, but he's
Don't ruin
not.
my Harrison Ford image, please.
Don't watch Blade Runner then. Great film, but I wouldn't.
Sarah, it's terrible. I can't stand Blade Runner. I can't stand it. It's awful. Absolutely.
My God,
I can't
podcast's
stand
over.
it. It's shocking. It's absolute. Anyway, but oh yeah, you should watch Paul. You should watch Witness. It's a good Harrison Ford. It's a bit grim, but it's a good Harrison Ford film. But yeah, no, I think it is. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of it as a family film, but to be fair, it actually is because there's not an awful lot in there. I mean, what is it like a 12? I think 12A, something like that. It's not. It's not. You know, you could put it on and not kind of worry.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not playing it for the nieces and nephews yet because they're nowhere near old enough, and you know, especially the Beatles and stuff.
Oh God.
I wouldn't want to horrify them every time.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that. Yeah, I'd be
Every
like,
time you know they see a woodlouse, they run away screaming.
yeah,
Oh
see one in the
God.
house and be like, oh, watch out, it's gonna get you. Yeah.
Beatles are again just a great horrifying scene. This film has got so many just horrifying little moments, and like I said, for like a family friendly film that got like a wide theatrical release, like some really quite gross like body horror kind of stuff. Probably another reason that I like it. Like me and Sean always is just like any film that's got a weird, gross, gooey bit, big fan. And I think it comes from The Mummy, honestly. I think that's where that comes from, is just seeing The Mummy and being like, yeah, more of that. Every film should have a weird, gungy bit, and then I'd be happy.
I think most kids go through like an Egypt phase, and I think this film, like, I think it had such a big impact, and it's just such a like, there's so much love for it. Like, even if like Sophie, people watch it, and I do think, you know, again, like Sarah said earlier about wanting to see a film for the first time, I think sometimes if you don't watch a film when you're younger, it's never going to do it for you.
Mm.
So, like, my example is Star Wars, and I've watched it like in my late 20s, you know, years later, because my dad wouldn't have it on because it was Star Trek all the way in our house. It just never happened. It just doesn't do it for you. You can watch it and appreciate it, but it just doesn't grab you in the same way. So I think maybe
Yeah, no, I
that
get
that
that.
is something that you can think about as well, about maybe because you watch it when you're younger, and it's such a such a good film and so many practical effects in it, like the destruction of Haran After and stuff. Even though there is like what at the time were like groundbreaking special effects, which I'm amazed they're still holding up. I mean, Paul, you'll no doubt be more on this because I don't have any of them, but I was wondering earlier if you watched it in the 4K HD or whatever it is, because how does the Mummy, like, how does Imhotep hold up? That was something I wanted to ask. Because surely, does it render badly, or do they have to like touch it up?
It's strange that I don't have it on 4K. I've only got the Blu-ray of it, but we do have a 4K TV which does upscale to 4K, so it's not like absolutely truly 4K quality. But I would say, I mean, yeah, I mean for the time, it's not like, oh, that's really really bad and murky, you know, like effects, or like it just looks horrible kind of thing. But obviously, it shows its age and with, you know, with patches and that kind of stuff. But for the minuscule amount of things I mean, obviously when they've got when he's got obviously the face in the sand thing, that's probably the least inoffensive use of the CGI. I guess it's more when he's like, you know, his mouth stretches down and everything, like when he's kind of more
Mm.
human form and everything, and when he's obviously starts off coming out from the sarcophagus and everything, like walking around with his all like that figurine you've got, Sean, and that's a bit like, it looks a bit goofy, but you let it slide
Yeah.
because of the nature of the film's not taking itself too seriously anyway with how it's approaching things, but it's still fun.
I think you got the balance right, didn't it? With between like practical, so like the bit where you see the mummy's face in the sand, that was not practical, but they did things around the effect. So to get like the sand jumping up at I nearly said Harrison Ford then. That's a slip. What to get
If only.
to get the sand like jumping up at Brendan Fraser, they put bowling balls under the sand connected with wire, and they would pull him across in front of him. Which is, I mean, I've never seen behind the scenes of that, but I really want that tape. I really want that footage. Somebody there like pulling like, you know, a string and all this sand flying up while, you know, Rick O'Connell's got to look horrified. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah. But in terms of like the score and everything, there is that sort of like overlaying like scariness to it, I guess, which is kind of what you want. It's kind of mysterious, but also like a foreboding, really, of like, you know, when they first like discovering things about like, oh, where they've got to find the treasure and everything like that. I think that's really like effective at the beginning, more so leads in with that. But like I said, definitely the Beatles are probably one of the the most scary part, because it's like just the crawling all over you, and kind of like the noise they make as well. Just the sounds of that is just a little.
But it's deserved of the people who do it. Like, you shouldn't be taking people's crap. So, like, lesson learned as a child: don't
Yeah,
steal.
don't be a thief.
It's true. It does have like I feel like the message is pretty good throughout, of just like don't go messing with stuff you shouldn't be messing with. You know, don't be stealing and like robbing from other people, because you know pretty much all the bad guys like thoroughly get their comeuppance. Most of the good guys as well, but like you know they get karma comes to them pretty horrifically. And I really like all of the it's quite a big cast in the first Mummy, I think, when you've got all of the, you know, the sort of two teams and the Americans, and you know, you've got Evie and Rick and everyone. Quite an extended cast, and I really like all of them, and some of the deaths that happen to them are just particularly stuck with me, I think, throughout the years. Just bleh. But just extended cast is fantastic. I don't know about if anyone's got any standouts.
I really like Jonathan as a character. Really, kind of like they're just kind of like he's a typical like, oh, you know, he's kind of like trying to be put on a facade of being like heroic, but in, you know, when he's actually kind of a little bit of a coward, but not like a complete coward like Benny is, because he's another great like favorite of mine, but he's just for a different reason.
I can't wait for Benny to die. Like, I'm like literally want him to die. Like, every time I see him, I'm like, when is he gonna die? So I was really happy with his comeuppance. It was like, yeah, that's literally needed to happen.
But think of his children. I love the lines in it as well.
children.
The script's so good.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Someday I might, which was apparently an ad lib from Kevin J. O'Connor. The whole someday I might, which apparently was just totally off the top of his head. But yeah, I just like love that whole bit, especially the beginning. I mean, you know, you talk about strong openings in a film, you get the whole the Imhotep and Anax and the Moon and the murder of the Pharaoh, and then you get this, you know, some of the CGI is a bit rough, but you get this beautiful scene where, well, beautiful in respect of Man and Sarah's view that of, you know, they've condemned his priests to be mummified alive, and then you've got, you know, Imhotep enduring the Homdai, the worst of all ancient curses, and they cut his tongue off. But the way they filmed that with the guy moving in front of the camera is brilliant. And then throw him in a sarcophagus alive with a load of scarabs. It's just great, and the music, and then you get the Battle of Hamunaptra, which is, you know, in like 1923 or whenever it is, 1921, I think. And it's brilliant, and I love the bit where because I think it's the French Foreign Legion, and the commander just throws his sword down and like rides off on his horse, and Benny just turns to Rick and he's like, "You just got promoted," and he just like looks at him. He's like, "You're with me on this run, right?" He's like, "Oh, your strength gives me strength," and then he runs off, and it's like. Such a good opening. But
He's such a
like,
little shit. He's such a little shit, Benny.
He is, yeah. Yeah. It's like that's the thing about, like you were saying earlier, Sarah, that it plays so many different like themes that it really should be a mess. Like, it should be like, well, they tried to do comedy, they tried to do horror, they tried to do action, they tried to do a romance. So it shouldn't work, and it does. And yeah, it's just, I mean, I do prefer the sequel, which I know is a bit. I do think the first one's a better film, but I enjoy the second one more, which I know sounds a bit weird, but yeah, it's like the cast's great as well. Like, I love the Americans are great. All the guys in that, about, because you see them, they're just kind of there for the money, and yeah, I just think it's great, especially the whole bit on the boat when like it's on fire and they're just like enjoying themselves like cowboys. Yeah, I love it.
Guns blazing, literally. Yeah, and the fact that when they obviously like when they all like, oh, we got to find who's going to race to get to the treasure first, kind of thing. You know, the area, and it's the whole thing across the desert, kind of thing. It's like they're just how reckless they are. Like, oh, we, you know, tripping over each other just to get to be the first one there to explore it, because it's so. I think that's what works well, because it's obviously when it's set as well, because it's all is like that's how they discovery of stuff. It's like you have to be at there first, rather than, you know, it's easy just to nowadays to be like, oh, look, well, I got on my phone kind of thing and all that kind of thing, and just like claim that you've got the footage or whatever kind of stuff. Whereas with this, there's sort of like actual sort of stakes of that, because that's all they had to means to get across, especially with limited transportation and stuff as well, for one thing.
Yeah,
I
you
think
you
that's
really get a
why
sense that it's. Sorry, no, go on.
it's okay. Go on.
No, I was dying to ask you, Sophie, because like I'll probably just pepper this with questions for you, because you've watched it for the first time. So what about what did you think of the reveal of Hammond Aptra? Because they just sat there in the middle of the desert, and Rick's like, "Oh, you're about to be shown the way." And then what did you think of that reveal of the sun comes up and it's like a mirage? What did you think of that?
Trying to remember it.
So the mirage,
Memorable
in
end.
the sun, in the sunrise, and then it's kind of like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
see the sort of the city or the
When they're on the camels.
yeah. That's when before they race over to it and go, right, let's go.
The scene where she's like, "Gigi, Gigi, hi, Gigi," that one.
That's the only bit I can take away from it. I'm not even going to lie. That's the only bit I can remember is when she's making this weird noise and she goes off really fast
Yeah.
on this camel.
Oh, and you get Benji
the actual
Benji
other bit.
whacking Rick with the whip instead of his horse, and then like Rick just pulls
Yeah.
him off the horse, like, "See you later."
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
To be fair, I think Evie's character for me is that I quite enjoy her growth within it. Like, initially she's like this person who wants to be more knowledgeable and use her Egyptian talent and everything like that she's got, but she's just working in a library and she's kind of been
Shunned by them, mate. It's like, oh, I've been rejected again, type of thing. And
yeah,
put
she just
down
wants to
by
prove herself, doesn't
the
she, that
scholars.
she's worthy and able to do a good job. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's something that makes you enjoy her character and her growth within it. And she seems really knowledgeable, even though she does actually mess up with the book, actually, to be fair. It is her fault.
No harm ever came from reading a book.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly. But it did. That's the only thing. And I think there's lines like these, like now you're saying it, it's very clever. But when you watch it for the first time, I don't think you actually notice it. But I think, how many times have you actually watched the film? Like, you guys, roughly?
Oh god.
Oh my god, it's got to be. I mean, I'd be surprised if it was less than 100. I've seen it a lot. It's just a go-to film.
Mm.
You know what though? I think I'll make the point before I forget. And sorry, just to come in before Sarah. I'd love to see what you think of the second one, especially because Evie is brilliant in the second one. You can see like the growth. Jonathan is exactly the same, which some people complain about, and I'm like, I don't want Jonathan to change. But yeah, you'd probably love the second one. You'd probably enjoy it more, I think. But anyway, sorry, Sarah, go on.
No, I was gonna say I couldn't even put a vague number towards how many times I've seen this film. It's probably a bad thing. But yeah, Evie and Rachel Weisz as Evie is just absolute obsession of mine. She's, like you said, she's at the beginning, like I said, just desperate to prove herself, but just the little arc that she goes through and actually being able to prove herself and hold her own against everyone and being, like pivotal towards it. I love her. I love her so much. She's just played fantastically as well. And I haven't ever watched. I know they did the third Mummy film where they recast her.
Yeah, I've not seen that either, so I don't know what.
I couldn't imagine anyone else playing that role. I just couldn't.
I've seen the second one. I vaguely remember what. Obviously, there's the kid. They have Alex, is it?
Yeah.
Spoilers? What kid?
Yeah, at the start. It's at the start of the film.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Sorry, but
Okay, it's fair. Yeah, it jumps on about 8 years. The second film. They've aged well because it's only like 2. But no, yeah, it's
Oh.
you'll love the second one.
I can't believe you just did that, Paul. Like, what the heck? Like that stuff I like to just be surprised by. Like, scary shit, that's when you need to tell me it's coming. But like a love story, you don't need to drop that one on
that's
me.
implied at the end, isn't it? Because then it's
Well, you get together, but don't mean they have a kid. Like, I didn't expect that they were going to be having kids anytime soon.
I mean, it's the 30s. No, I'm not going to watch that. Before I forget, there's a scene in this that no one ever talks about, and I think it's because it's really understated. It's the bit where Evie's just made a mess in the library, and she hears a noise out the back, and she goes out there, and she's like, and she starts saying, she's like, hello, and she like says a couple of like obviously very Egyptian names. Then she's like, Mohammed, and then all of a sudden she just goes, Bob, and like no one ever talks about it, and I think it's really good.
To be fair, that is one of the scenes where I do enjoy, because I kind of see her dismay when the books go all over the place, and it's like a domino effect. And it is exaggerated, like, would that actually happen in real life? But I still appreciate that she's got herself into that much trouble, and she just looks really beside herself. And then she's got to know what the noise is, which is just her annoying brother, basically, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. Have you no respect for the dead? It's like, sometimes I'd rather like to join them. He's just straight from the off. His character's like, yeah. And no one cares that he's very obviously Scottish. She's very English. Like, no one ever, like, we don't care. No one cares.
I
Don't
didn't
worry
even
about it.
notice, which is
Yeah.
yeah, she's
Very,
weird.
rather subtle in his actual accent on that. But
Yeah, he's pared it
Like,
down, yeah.
I did
Yeah.
say to you, Paul, when I first watched this, obviously I'm a really big fan, I'm sorry if I offend you, of Tarzan. And she straight away looked like a Jane to me as a character. Like, she's this British well-to-do person, wants to find out all the history and knowledge, and then Rick O'Connell, first time she sees him, is in jail, and he's got long hair like Tarzan, and straight away I kind of put the two together.
No, I could see that definitely.
Yeah, it's a fair comparison.
Even the suit as well, when once he's like looking dishy and he's cleaned up and he's cut his hair, and she's like, "Oh, actually, I quite like you now."
Yeah, he's still he's still quite kind of rude to her, which I like the dynamic that you kind of they kind of don't like each other. It's not like the the soppy kind of love at first sight. It's very much like grows with both of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's to the point where, like, later on when Imhotep is taking her, she's like, you better rescue me, because if he turns me into a zombie, a mummy, you're the first one I'm coming after. And I thought, bit of a strange pickup line, but I kind of see where you're going with it.
Yeah, one of the other scenes I do like with Evie though is when she's kind of loosening up a bit when they're at the campsite and she's getting all drunk, and it's like, what's a girl? I know, what's a place like me doing in a girl like this or something? Is that
Yeah. I was dying to know as well, and so I'm doing it again. So I do want to talk to you, Paul, but it's because Sophie's seen it the first time. Like, the scene, because I didn't realize till years later. Like, literally, I'm only talking like when I was an adult and I watched it again. I didn't realize for years that the guy who plays the librarian, who's like secretly part of the Magi, this secret society that's been, I didn't realize that he burns the map on purpose to try and stop them from going, which I never got as a kid. Not as a kid, no.
Really?
I just never got it as a kid. Wasn't the smartest, all right. I was enjoying the film.
I did straight away notice that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that was like, oh, okay. So he clearly doesn't want them to go there for whatever reason, and his intent is to kind of ruin their like little adventure that they've got planned. And I was like, I could see it from a mile off. Like, before he'd even burnt the map, I was like,
All right.
I'm slapping that around.
I get it. All right. I'm
candle.
Yeah, especially he's not exactly subtle. He's like, it's for the best, and you're like, all right, okay. I watched it. How did I miss that? But yeah, I mean, it's just such a good story. Like, the characters around them and how it all plays out. Like, they do very human things. They don't, like, Rick at one point, it's like, we're down the hall, we're out, we're gone, we're going. And, they have that argument where he's very much like, right, we're going. And, I think what I love as well is I forget when I watch this, even though I've seen it so many times, like, how many stages, although they skip a few, how many, like, stages there are before it gets to kind of Imhotep being regenerated. Like, there's, like, at one point, there's, like, fireballs raining down out of the sky, setting people on fire, and that's a damn good scene. I enjoy that one. Benny's just scuttling about like the little shit he is, like wrecking the desk, and he's making all these weird noises as well. He's like, wee, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, but he's such a good. And then he like throws the chair at him, and Jonathan's just like, oh, good shot. And the blood as well. I love that scene where they're like to health, and then they're like blood. Yeah, I love that bit.
It's the little man with the fountain every 2 minutes as well that got me. Like, his foot in the fountain. Do you remember him?
Winston.
Pilot.
Some bloody idiot spilled his drink. I love that, like, he keeps stepping in it. Yeah.
And I think it's just that old man authority thing where he's like, he's knowledgeable. He doesn't realize it's a fountain, but he's definitely right, and he's not going to admit he's wrong. But his ending as well, the way that it kind of happens, is quite a bittersweet
Very,
thing, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's yeah.
It's
it
what he
gets
wants,
sunk
isn't
into
it? Because
his- yeah,
he's clearly like a veteran of the Great War, because he says Royal Flying Corps, which is the precursor to the RAF. So like he loves it. He's like, I'd have liked to have got, and he's drunk all the way through as well. I'd have loved to have chucked it all in with the others and gone down in flames and glory, but here I am rotting of boredom and booze. And you're like, yep, that'll do it. Like, yes, I've seen this film far too many times, and no, I haven't rewatched it earlier. Yeah, I love it.
What were you going to say about Rick?
Rick, where do I start with him? Is he? I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna like want to say some words and want to shove them back in my mouth. But do you think he's a good guy? Like, I feel like he's a little bit selfish, a little bit at the beginning. He's more self-orientated. He kind of is all out for me. And maybe that's with how Benny has been with him, that he's learned that he has to just put himself first because he's been in jail and there's some reason behind it. But initially he's like, right, I just want to get out of jail. This lady's my free ticket to do that. And then I'll show her where she is. And once shit's down, like how he is, I'm out. I'm going to bounce and not kind of care about it. Obviously, the only reason why he starts to care is because she's pretty and he fancies her, isn't it? Let's be honest. If she were ugly, would he have even bothered?
It's well, same goes for her. But yeah, equality, can't have it both ways, girls. No, I'm only joking. No, I think he is definitely very self-destructive at the beginning in terms of like he's sentenced to death. Apparently, he had a very good time. I love Omid Jalili in this. He's brilliant. It's like, and what else? I'm a very lonely man. And he like puts his hand on her knee and she whacks him with a book. And you're like, calm down, calm down. But yeah, I think he is very self-destructive at the beginning. And you know, he's gonna get hung. And he's just like, all right, fine. Because he even says to her later on, when you think kind of like this romance is burgeoning on the boat, she's like, why did you kiss me? And he's like, well, I was about to get hung. It seemed like a good idea at the time, which is a very flippant man thing to say. You know, we've all said something that like really you stick your foot in your mouth, and then 5 minutes later, when your brain kicks in, you go, oh yeah, that might not have come across quite as I intended. So yeah, it's yeah, I think it's, I don't know. I've been interested to see what Sarah thinks, but I think overall he is a good guy, but he's certainly, like all good characters, he's got that kind of little bit of like that little bit of
Yeah.
grey, you know, because he's perfectly happy to like go. He knows there's this walking, talking corpse, and he's like, right, we're going. I've agreed to bring you here and take you back. I've done that. I'm going. Yeah, and it's only when she's threatened because you know Imhotep's marked her as a Nux in the Moon, like you know the ritual sacrifice, that he's like, right, well, I'm gonna have to do something about this. But yeah, what do you think, Sarah? Sorry.
Yeah, no, he's very reluctant, isn't he? Like I think that's part of what makes their sort of dynamic so interesting is that she really just is interested in the history. She's just soaking up everything that there is in this place and she's just excited to be part of something where he's just kind of being dragged along for it pretty much just to you know fulfill a job. And I really like that sort of yeah, like the sort of playoff between that, between him just kind of like, oh god, get dragged into these ridiculously over the top kind of situations, and just you know in his mind being like, oh, I should have just you know collected the money and gone. Like I love his reluctance to it. I think it would have been a completely different and probably worse film if he was 100% down for the ride from the get go. Like it still would have probably been interesting, but it's him just like dragging his feet for like the first half of the film that I really enjoy. It would just be like, "Ugh, yeah, you know, part of what I really like about it. But I wouldn't say for that reason he's a good guy. He doesn't go into it with very like you know selfless reasons. Like you're saying, he just wants to kind of get his freedom and do the job that he said he was going to do. But I said I think that makes it more interesting than it potentially could have been if he was just more, you know, more of just a hero of just I'm going to save the world, you know, for no reason. I just
And he gets dragged into it, doesn't he? Like he doesn't. They don't come up with this ridiculous idea of how he becomes involved. Like she doesn't visit the prison or anything. Like it's because Jonathan has pickpocketed this puzzle box, which is obviously the key. He's like Jonathan's pickpocketed this in a bar, or like a tavern, and then you know because I love when Rick turns up and he's all dapper and he's got his hair and he's in a nice suit, and you know Jonathan's like, "Oh yeah, good to have you on board, O'Connell," and he's like, "Oh, cheers," and he like opens his jacket and checks his wallet,
Yeah.
which is like is a really like nice touch, as if to say. But yeah, I love the bit where like he punches Jonathan through the cage as well, because Jonathan's pretending he's like this local missionary, and then he realizes who he is. So yeah, it's great.
So the chemistry they've got as well, so the banter they have. There's like a bit where I think it's like one of the scenes like later in the film where it's like, Brick says to Evie, obviously, he's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah," and Jonathan's like, "Yeah, I'm a bit flustered actually," or something like that. It's like, I wasn't talking to you, kind of like glance that he kind of gives and everything. That kind of that's kind of why I like Jonathan as well, because he's like these sort of like mannerisms of that, just to how he is with everybody, and it's just really. But then he also sort of learns by the end as well. It's not like, oh, the riches aren't worth like dying for, really, as opposed to some of the other people, the characters are kind of like, yeah, we just want out for the money, really, and we don't care what the outcome is.
Has nobody watched Aladdin? Because this is similar, isn't it? You go into the underground where all the treasure is and everything like that. You try and steal it. You're not going to get it, are you? Like that's the logic. Like you know you're going to get stuck there. You're not going to get a magic carpet that's going to fly you out.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
It's just obvious, isn't it, that that's how it's going to work? Like, I think it's one of those things where it is a good moral. Like, it shows you that greed doesn't get you anywhere, even though at the end of it, they do get treasure because Benny's been stacking up a camel.
It's true. It is. Yeah. I mean, but that's the downfall of Benny, that all the other characters realize that they need their lives, and Benny's like, "Yeah, I'm off. See you later." But the bit where again, like the really funny trivia, like the camels hated Kevin J. O'Connor, who played Benny. Like they didn't like him, and they wouldn't. So that bit where he's like, when he's trying to get the camel to come with him, that apparently came from the fact that he was just meant to go on and get a camel to move and put some treasure on it, but the camel wouldn't move, so it becomes this really like funny scene. But it's because the camels just didn't like him, and they don't know why. So I love that. Like he's just there, like this camel's like, no.
I'd want to know why. I'd be so upset.
They get like film, yeah.
If you're an actor and the camels just hate you.
Yeah. There's a really bad getting the hump joke, but I'm not doing it. I'm better than that. But no, it's it's one of them things, isn't it? Because I know you can get like film horses, like trained horses, like the ones at the beginning that fall and they get them used to gunfire and stuff like that. But I don't know if they can do that with camels, to be honest. So I doubt if they'd have wanted the camel to do that, they would have been able to tell it. But I don't know. But yeah, I love that bit. But they end up with a bit of swag at the end, don't they?
They do. They get rewarded for all of the crimes and just plundering that they do. But
should they be rewarded?
It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Like,
for a sort of happy ending, you've got to have. Yeah, it gets the girl. I guess that's
but it
the main
is their
thing.
fault, isn't it?
Yeah. Just the destruction, that they have caused. Not all their fault, not entirely their hands, but could have been prevented, and they do get rewarded at the end with a bunch of treasure, which is.
We live in a much more serious time, don't we? And I know this is rich of me to say, but like sometimes you just need to take it kind of for what it is. I think if they've rode off into the sunset and Jonathan was like, "So homeless by next week, sis, your boss has been killed by zombies with blisters on the face, chanting Imhotep. The library's probably knackered, so but I think it would have been a tad depressing, But I quite like it.
I thought you liked depressing films.
Yeah, but you've got to mix it up and enjoy a film every now and then.
To be fair, I did enjoy the film. I'm not even going to say I didn't. Like, I enjoyed what I watched. But when you I think for me, like I straight away said to Paul when we watched it, I was like, okay, how did you feel about what you watched? And I'm like, is there a nostalgic thing that I'm missing that if I'd have grown up with it, would I appreciate it? However, I'm a very scaredy cat child when I was younger. Men in Black scared me. So a lot of things like that, probably, I don't know if I'd have appreciated this at a young age.
I don't think
the Beatles would have freaked the living crap out of me.
You don't like spiders anyway, so
nope. Yeah. I would have never gone near a beetle ever again, I don't think. Like thinking it's going to crawl under my skin. That's how kind of invested I would have got, probably, wouldn't I?
Yeah, and you'd be like, the wind's blowing outside or something.
Oh
You're
no,
thinking
I like
that
the
might...
wind. It's fine.
What about
No,
sand?
but like,
Would it have put you off
Sand.
beaches for life? Or...
No, I don't think so. Paul doesn't like sand, but I can't say I don't like the wind because I love Pocahontas, and that's all about wind. So
Right.
that wouldn't have phased
I mean,
me.
oh, that scary wind.
Can we have can we have the story about why Paul's afraid of sand? I mean, I feel
I'm not,
like
no, I'm not.
He
I'm not
is.
afraid of sand. I don't want to sound like Anakin from Attack of the Clones, but
You've got a sand problem.
it gets everywhere. Really, it's just messy. Really.
oh yeah,
You
yeah,
should see
yeah.
him when we get on the beach. Like, this person's not taking his shoes off, and then he still whines back that the sand in his shoes.
To be fair though, you're right, because do you know what the worst thing is? Especially if like, you know, you've got like little nephews or nieces or whatever. It's when a kid it's when like your bath ends up with sand in the bottom of it. It's horrendous.
Silt. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, you sit in the bath and a nice clean bath. Why am I gritty? And you're like, it's not a nice feeling. So I kind of get that. Another thing as well, when you go abroad, I mean, like to Spain or wherever, hot sand, burning hot sand on your feet is like, I'm used to cold northeast beaches. I'm not used to hot sand on my feet.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Well, is it?
Yeah, I'm
Really good
pro
for your
sand.
feet.
I don't know
Like,
what.
your home pedicure. Like, have you ever done that? Like, where you kind of just rub your heels in the sand?
No, I haven't. But like Sarah, I had to stop a woman pummeling her feet in a cafe I worked in once.
Ugh.
She sat on a table at the back, pummeling her feet, and I had to go over and tell her that she couldn't do it because there was people eating. Like, and she looked, and all her skin was on the floor, and she looked at me like I'd gone over there and like swiped her food off the table. Like I said something weird, like you're pummeling your feet in
That is
public for what?
disgusting.
Yeah.
Your feet are minging. I didn't say that because of customer service. You know, what are you doing? You know,
Yeah.
there's people trying to eat. Funniest, honestly. This woman, excuse me. Like, yeah, you all right? Can I help? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, but there's a woman over there, like, sanding her feet. I was like, excuse me? You can imagine me, can't you? Trying to be professional. Sorry,
Yeah.
excuse me? She's what? Oh, she's sanding her feet. Right, I'll go and have a word. Sorry about that. I know it's just we're trying to eat our fish fingers and burgers, and she's. Like, it's all right. It was honestly some of the stories. I should do a podcast on just.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was. So yeah, maybe you're right, Sophie and Sarah. Do it in the sand. Do it in the sand on a beach, not in a cafe. Nobody wants that.
No, I've never really thought of doing it in a cafe, to be fair. I feel like it's either on the beach or at home or where you'd get your feet pedicured.
Yeah. It's common sense.
Also, don't you think this film reminds you of Scooby-Doo?
What, the 2002 one?
In what way?
Does no one know the line that I'm on about?
I don't think so.
Are you talking about my glasses?
Mhm.
Although it's not exclusively just to that film.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
That's
like
also
Velma.
happened
Yeah.
Velma in many
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo
Well,
episodes.
that's what I mean, just Scooby-Doo in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it would have really ruined the film if Rick O'Connell ran around going "Zoinks, jinkies." It would have really might have killed it a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Imhotep's like in Egyptian, I'd have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those pesky librarians. Actually, that could work.
Yeah, if you spoke English, yeah, it might have worked. But yeah, no, they say my glasses kind of thing is like a common trope,
Well, it's
isn't it?
funny because I actually saw it happening. He dropped his glasses, and I went to Paul, my glasses, and then he said it, and I was like,
Yeah. What did you think about the reveal when he turns around? You know, when she's like, "Oh, Mr. Burns, thank God, I was just starting to get scared." My impression's too good of that. And he turns around. What did you think of that bit with my eyes?
She did really well.
Love it.
But I think it's just the creepiness of it all, isn't it? A little bit. I think for me, because I'm not into gore, but actually the high level of it works well. But is that when he's got the tongue as well?
Yeah, because it's bloodless gore, isn't it? Because he says, "My tongue, he took my tongue," and the best line from Benny earlier, which shows you what a little shit he is. Like, he's not just a shit; he's like an M&S level shit, right? It's the bit where he's sat with Burns and he's got like the bandages around his eyes, and he's pretending Imhotep is like this ancient prince. And he's like, he thanks you for your hospitality, and for your eyes, and for your tongue, but I am afraid that more is needed. And you're like, bloody hell, Benny, mate. Like, you used to be a lovable little sod. Now this is just like, this is horrible. This is awful.
It's just that type of character that if I can...
That's another bit as well, you know, when he's like, oh, begging for his life almost. You got all like the different religious
yeah.
symbols.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's not working. Right, try this one instead. And then it's like, oh, the language of the slaves of the Judaism one. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, that's the faith I'm sticking with for now, because that's what's going to help me out of this situation.
Well, there's a really interesting pan right at the beginning where you see like the different. I mean, I don't know if they meant it this way, but I mean, I think it is. Like, it starts and panning off from the sun, and you've got that beautiful narration, and it pans down the pyramids, and you see like the slaves building the pyramid,
Mhm.
and then it pans further down, and then you get into like, you know, the ancient Egyptians, like the rich ones walking the dogs, and there's kids laughing, and and you know, and then you see the king or the pharaoh, and it's, you know, and all these guards, and you think, oh, and so it's a real like interesting contrast that like later on you get a little bit of like a callback to that, with obviously all these different, you know, you get all the penance out of all the different religions to try and save himself. But yeah, it's just so funny. I love that bit. Take a shot every time I say it. I love that. Please don't. You'll love it. And that's another thing, you don't get these Weasley type characters in films anymore that are kind of like lovable but awful. They seem to have forgotten how to write them. People are either evil or good. There doesn't seem anything between anymore.
It's true. And I feel like Benny's character grated on me so much. He was doing a really good job at it, because
character you love to hate, basically.
yeah, it's like the only ones I can think of is Mr. Pink in, is it Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah.
Like, he's like that sleazy little shitbag, isn't he?
Mhm.
And that's what Benny is.
Mhm.
And I think you hate him, but at the same time, he's a solid character to be there and be present. But at the end, when he does get locked in with all the treasure, like, you've got all the money in the world now, Benny, but you can't do nothing with it.
Oh, that bit at the end where he's like, torches just starting to go out, and then the sound effects that you get, it's just like, yeah, this is good stuff. I love all that with the mirrors. It's really, which apparently is apparently a real thing, where, you know, where the mirrors, they angle it to get the sunlight in these underground rooms. Like I love all that stuff. And then like the second one, you get more of kind of looking at Egyptian stuff. So no, it's,
You know, the mummy.
Yeah, Imhotep, yeah.
Yeah. You kind of feel for him, don't you?
Yeah.
In a way, yeah. He just wanted to be with this.
You just want
this
this love.
love.
So you do feel sorry for him, because like he just was denied that. And really, to be fair, when he was mummified and everything like that, he didn't deserve it. But now everyone's saying he's a bad person.
No, I agree. I'm a sucker for sucker for the love story parts of it. So like, he should have been able to be with an ox and a moon. It's not fair. Again, if you like that, you'll enjoy the second one. But like, he's not entirely just a bad guy. I think I like the effort it went to kind of establish about this is what he's actually motivated by, and this is why he got this horrific curse on him. And was it entirely justified? No, not really. I can't remember the actor's name, but Sean will know it. But like,
Arnold Vosloo.
I think he does a fantastic job as well at just being like, for the big bad guy, of being like a really interesting, well acted character as well. Like, but no, I agree. He didn't deserve it. But then again, we wouldn't have had a film. But still, I'm just, like I said, sucker for a love story. So
yeah, because it extends it, doesn't it? And the second one, it extends it. And he went through like, he couldn't bear getting his, because he has hair, so he had to, like, obviously for the look of this evil mummy, he wanted to do like a bald thing. Again, it's a bit like the guy from Temple of Doom, so fair enough. Who did this? But he couldn't bear the pain of having his head waxed, so he had to shave his head every day, which is so you know, that's dedication to a role if ever I've known it.
And I think it was one of those kind of hard bits when he did want to obviously take Evie, because he could see that she looked somewhat of a resemble to, what's the...
An ox and a moon.
Yeah, thank you. And I think he could kind of see that resemblance somewhat in her. And even when Evie was on there and obviously Rick's going to save her, I was a little bit like, maybe I'm rooting for the mummy. Actually, do I want the mummy to have love?
Even when she had like the rat on top of her, like, I love that bit.
Yeah, I do love Evie's character, and I do love the relationship with Rick and Evie. But at the same time, it was like the mummy had gone so hard to get what he wanted.
I mean,
I knew you were gonna.
Sorry, you went so hard, sorry.
Literally, that's like all he wanted was
his end away.
To
yeah,
be
we know.
in love.
I know.
I was making it more romantic than that.
Fine, he wanted romantic walks down the banks of the Nile.
You did. Cute mummy.
Imagine the like tilt in the film if halfway through he meets Evie and then they just run off together, and then she just helps him like capture people and just regenerate himself, and then I'd probably still like it. I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably still enjoy it.
That's the remake, that I think. But yeah, I mean, which will no doubt come in about 5 years. But yeah, no, that's. I mean, how much of a love story was it anyway? He was the Pharaoh's priest. He was knocking off the Pharaoh's mistress. She and him killed the Pharaoh together. Then she kills herself. My body is no longer his temple. A really kick-ass line, if ever there was one. And then you get he's very much like, oh, I want to bring her back, but he wants to like enslave the world. So it's that whole thing, if he just like, but I mean, I'm not saying I was gonna, in films, everyone loves a fling, but then once the excitement dies down and they've enslaved the world, do you think Imhotep and like Anaximandrina, really gonna, is it gonna last? Will their love last?
Yeah. In 2 years' time or whatever, in the next film, they'll have a child and Paul will tell me about it.
Well, you want to watch the second one because the love story develops and we find out if the love's true or not. So,
But Paul's already spoiled the fun part for me.
It's not really fun, really.
Well, the fact that they've got a child now.
Well, it'll go either one or two ways because when me and Sarah like review this, and I know I've listened to a few other people's and reviews and stuff, some people really don't like the kid. I don't mind him, but some people really don't like the kid.
With him really that much, but maybe it's
How can you not like a kid?
I don't know, just a bit like a...
You need to watch it first.
Yeah, maybe
You should watch
This is what you did to me within Scooby-Doo, like Scrappy-Doo. I've never really realised he's annoying. And I was like, he's cute. What you on about, Paul? And Paul's like, no, he's annoying. And I'm like, and then I'm like, you've ruined it for me now.
Even back then, no, it's annoying.
Interesting.
Well, I think that'll do it. So,
I actually
if there's
feel
any other points to bring up,
no, I'm okay. I feel like I'm just really disheartened him.
No. I'm thinking, we finished already. No, death is only the beginning.
Is there anything that you would want to bring more? Is there something we've missed?
No, I mean, I could go on for hours about the film, and I've done it. I've done it to death. But no, it's a good film. It's and I think it's nice to hear it from somebody who's never seen it before, because you don't get that, especially with a film like this. Like everyone's seen it, whether they hate it or they love it. Everyone's seen it.
Where I been under a hole somewhere,
in a tomb.
We've all got films we've never seen, and
yeah.
people are like, "What?
Oh yeah, same.
You've never seen that?"
Yeah, even me.
But then you watch them, and they're not great.
Yeah.
No.
Like I watched Gremlins recently, and that was like shit for 45 minutes. I fell asleep.
Oh
and
no,
then
I
watched,
love
like,
Gremlins. Well, I agree.
Oh,
But again, that's a nostalgia thing for me. Like that's
Then I love the Gremlins.
Yeah.
That's not a nostalgia thing for me, but he's really cute.
Gizmo here, little
I
Gizmo.
love Gizmo.
Although saying that, I watched Gremlins 2 before I watched Gremlins 1, but that's my preferred Gremlins film. That's a lot more Warner Brothers style Looney Tunes like craziness, so that's a big thing for me. But
I
anyway,
know I've
it's fine
seen
by
it, but I can't remember
Yeah.
it.
It's one of those things. It's like Jurassic Park: The Lost World. I think that's better than the original, and people are just like, "You mean?"
Oh no!
I know.
What are you saying?
dear.
What are you doing to me, Sean?
The first one's really slow, really, really slow.
Oh, you break my heart here, dude.
It's his favourite film.
One off.
He's weeping.
No, it's great. It's a great film, but I don't know. This Ian Malcolm. I love the second one. I think it's not a better film, but I enjoy it more.
Have you seen the third one?
Well, what the Velociraptor that's just like Alan, and you're like all that that stupid little larynx box thing.
Yeah.
That they can call to the raptors, and they change the raptors and put these little frills on their head, and you're like,
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about Jurassic World. Let's not go there. We'll be here for another 3 hours mourning.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I guess it'll be time to go to the scores then, and we'll start with the guests, but I have a vague feeling of what they might be, but by all means, share, please.
I mean, it's a 3 out of 10. It's not joking. It's an absolute 12 out of 10. It's just, I don't know how you could watch it and not at least enjoy it for kind of what it is. But I do think it's the more the longer time passes, so it's 25 years this year, the more time that passes and the worse films get, and believe me, they're getting worse, you look back and think, I don't know when we'll next get a film that gets anywhere near that level of just being such a perfect like adventure film, escapism, feel good, bit of gore, bit of comedy, all the actors and actresses bring their A game. You know, I don't think there's any fat in it. It's as long as it needs to be. The score's beautiful. The directing's brilliant, and I don't know how it could be any better. Even though I kind of enjoyed the second one more, so a bit of a strange one. But I think because I've seen that more, I don't know anyway. So
Yeah.
no, it's an awesome film, and if you haven't seen it before, try and go in and enjoy it. I'm not saying Sophie didn't, but I think don't go in thinking it's like the best thing ever. Go in and go in with your expectations of a film now, and it'll blow you away.
Yeah, it's a full action film of today's standards, and be like, wow, this is way better than what I watched like the other week. Yeah.
That's why it holds up. That's why the screening I'm going to see sold out.
Oh,
a month before it even opens,
cool.
because people are like, do you want to go see this film 5 or that film 4? No,
Yeah.
I'd rather go see The Mummy from 25 years ago, even though I've got it on DVD.
Sarah, what would you score the film?
I mean, yeah, again, I think you might be right in your summation. Yeah, it's just, there's certain films, I think, that everyone's got a few films where it just hits so many sort of points for them personally of just what they like in a film, and this is one of them for me. Like I said, I love the setting. Like I said, like a lot of people, I was super into just anything ancient Egyptian, so that was a big tick. Like I said, love the romance between them, love both of the leads, like a ridiculous amount. It was pretty bad. Just the gore as well, just the horror elements, and like I said, it's just, there's, from beginning to end, there's no like dead space, there's no real like lulls where there's no sort of downbeats. It's just from the get-go, just adventure all the way through. Every time I watch it, I love it. So yeah, for me personal, perfect. It's a 10 out of 10, but I know that it's hitting a lot of like my biases, but yeah, that's me.
I mean, we've almost gone the entire review without mentioning Oded Fair, who plays Ardeth Bay in the film. He's plays the leader of the Medjai. He's great as well.
Another hot guy.
Yeah. A lot of hot
He was
people in
meant.
this
Well,
film.
I was going to say Speaking of how he looks, they were meant to have tattoos all over his face, and if you look at the rest of the Medjai, they have a lot more tattoos than he does, and his whole face was meant to be tattooed. But apparently, when they cast him and he turned up, apparently they were like, he's too beautiful to cover up. So they didn't. That's why he's only got like these really small little. And he comes back in the second one. You'll be happy to know, and he plays a bigger part, and he's great. But I think his part's a little bit smaller in this one, but he is, again, he's great in it. And I love that, like, he sacrifices himself, but then he turns up at the end, and you're like, with a little bandaged hand, just to show he's been in the fight. So yeah, it's great.
Right, so my score.
You hated him, didn't you, Sophie? You hated him.
I'm letting Paul go first. I'm chickening out.
So for me, it's not as big of a nostalgic trip for me as you guys.
Disappoint them as well.
But no, there is still a level of enjoyment to be had from the film. It's definitely one of those ones that I feel like surmises like a blockbuster, like summer blockbuster type of film. So you can't deny that. And there's so much to enjoy from like the story perspective and just the all sort of like different elements we've got with the horror specifically for me that works, and obviously like the action that's it's light-hearted and fun in a way, and it's not like it's not like gruesome in terms of like what's shown with the horror, but there's just that the elements that really work for a younger audience. So I guess like we've said, it kind of appeals to almost everybody, really. There's some for everyone in there, and the actors are like pretty like overall attractive. You got male and female ones that are like
Evie's
across
pretty.
the board.
Yeah, can't say she's not.
Oh, Evie's gorgeous.
But I'm going to put it at
deep breath, everyone.
8.5.
I
I
think that's
thought it was
fair.
going to be harsher. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
That's fair. And just before we come to Sophie, if anybody's ever wondered why myself and Sarah don't do a video podcast, you're about to find out why. Because the disgust on our faces would be that bad. Listening to our guests, we'd never work in podcasting again.
This is why we don't do videos of ourselves. First of all, my face doesn't know how to control itself, and it's very expressive.
You said that that's a bad thing.
It is, because even it's a
Me too.
nightmare. And I think I'd look back and be like, why am I flailing my arms around? Why can't I just control them? So I feel like it's better that people can't see us. And I just sound really expressive, which is great.
I'd just be counting my chins. I'd be going, oh God, look at that. And oh, look at that. And I've podcasted with no face now for so long that if I ever, because the YouTube people are like, oh, come on, you're the only one that doesn't. I'm like, no, because I'd forget and start picking my nose halfway through. I know I would.
Yeah.
I know I would, So you're just like, no, I'm all right, thanks. It's fine.
Okay. Going in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go like what I like and then what I don't like.
Yep.
So definitely Evie is the highlight for me. She's like, I just love her to bits. She's clumsy but silly, but I think she's just an overall well-written character that you just have to love. I can't imagine anyone not really liking her. Obviously you have got a cat, which is always a bonus to me. So that gives it a point.
That's 1 out of 10.
Yeah. And then it does have romance, like I can't deny, like if you want in an all-rounder, this has got everything. It's got your romance, your comedy with Benny and Jonathan. It's got your mummy, which is a bit gory, and obviously the pyramids and everything like that. It's got history. It is pretty much, I think, a timepiece where it is you enjoy it for maybe when you've watched it as a younger child and you've grown up like with the Egyptian stage. I think for me, I've missed that stage. I worked out I'd have been 6 years old, so I don't know if I'd have been too young for this when it actually came out. And I would have been probably scared of every single little thing in it. So I think it would have been wasted on me. Do I absolutely love this film? No. But would I watch it again? Yes. And the length of the film, because it was quite long, wasn't it?
Just under 2 hours, I think, yeah.
That's long. So for me, I do agree. Like normally I get a bit of a gripe if a film's a bit too long. And I'll be like, oh, well, why did they do this bit? They could have got rid of that. That were a bit like no value added. I can't actually say there wasn't a scene that wasn't value added to the story. Like, I can't. Am I as obsessed as it is you guys? Probably not. But can I slag it off a lot? Not really. So my score is going to be middle ground. Not a 5. Don't worry.
Yeah, middle for Sophie.
My middle, like, if you watch Strictly Come Dancing and there used to be Len Goodall and he goes out with his 7 panel, that's me. I'm going to say 7.5.
Wasn't it Goodman? Was it Len Goodman?
Yes, it was. Don't out-shame me.
Just trying to recoup a bit of dignity back. That's fair.
I think for a first time watching, that's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's decent.
Thank you.
I've listened to a lot of quite a few of. That's a lot kinder to The Mummy than Sophie was to Titanic, so that's quite fair.
Ooh.
That's
Yeah. The Titanic got me a lot more emotionally invested,
And
but
then ripped
angered.
it away at the end. Yeah.
It felt like I went on this emotional roller coaster and got very upset about it all. Because she killed Jack, didn't she? Don't get me started.
Oh God. Yeah.
I mean, she should have just stayed on the. If she'd have stayed on the boat,
There was enough.
he'd have got on the door.
Exactly.
I do get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's enough space on the door, wasn't there? They could have balanced But yeah, to be fair, if she'd have stayed on the boat initially where he told her to, he would have had the door and they both would have lived.
But there you go.
Don't get me started.
Just did.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
Snippet that out. Have a little mini episode.
You could recap it into it and be like,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen the Titanic,
Titanic.
here's Sophie going on a high horse again. Oh dear.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for joining us on this episode. Before we let you go, if you would be so kind as to remind people where they can find you on the socials.
Yeah. Oh, the shameless plug. Love it. Yeah, you can find Review It Yourself on YouTube. Search Review It Yourself. You can find us on Twitter. It's at Yourself Review. Instagram, it's Review It Yourself Podcast 2021. And you can find it on Spotify, Good Pods, all the general podcast thing. I hate this bit, can you tell? But no one's listening, so I really need to start pushing this. But no, go find us where you listen to your podcasts. And yeah, enjoy. Pick a film you like. There's plenty there. There's 270 odd episodes. There's plenty there for you to enjoy. So give it a good go.
Yeah, you can also find Weird Horizon. Same deal. Search me pretty much everywhere. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I will not interact with anyone though, but that's just because I'm very, very lazy. But yeah, if you want, like I said, spooky sort of paranormal stuff and slightly longer form scripted content, that's where I do that stuff. If that is what you like the sound of. So that is me.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, I very much appreciate for your time for on this, and and I hope I've had a blast as we did.
Hope I don't break your hearts too much.
No, I think you're very, very fair.
I was expecting a lot worse. No, it wasn't. I mean, no, it was fair. You can only be fair. That's something that like me and Sarah have talked about. Like, and obviously I've done Review It Yourself on my own for a while. But when we were doing this, the part of the reason why like we get on so well is because neither of us sugarcoat it. Like, there's no point sitting there and going, "Oh my god, this is the best film ever." Because if it doesn't work for you, it just doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
I mean, me and Sarah will probably have to review Blade Runner at some point because she'll see if she can bring me round. Because I've only seen it once and just didn't get it. So it's like,
I'll give it another watch. Yeah,
I probably need to. I think it does affect, like you were saying earlier, I think when you watch a film does affect how you reciprocate to it. Because I've no doubt as you get older and you start getting to the ones that kind of like the midpoint of your life and going to films that probably mean a lot more to you then.
Yeah.
Whereas films about mortality at our age, it's a bit like, oh, well, okay, fair enough. Doesn't mean an awful lot, if that makes sense. That's a bit grim. Sorry, everyone. That's podcasting with Sarah. Let's talk about death. That's what that is.
Okay. Well, thanks very much once again, guys, and take care. Thank you for listening to this episode, and a big thank you to our special guests for joining us. If you want to check out some of our other episodes, you can do so by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you get your podcasts from. And we'd really appreciate you leave us a 5-star review on any of those platforms as well. A big thank you to the Patreons for supporting the show, who are Mark from 100 Things to Learn from Film, Ben from Film Vloggers, Nico from the Good, the Bad, the Weird podcast, Chris Gren, who is cgren_draw on Instagram, Alex, who is desperately seeking username on Instagram, Shani, who is SDOG on Instagram, Danny Jones, or Jonesy, who is at WeightLossJonesy on Instagram, Emma, who is M_Hayton on Instagram, and of course Sophie's mom. And if you would like a shout out on each of our episodes and the opportunity to vote on what we watch once a month, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/SP Filmviewers to sign up for as little as £1 or $1.50 a month, and gets you those little perks and helps grow our little community. And lastly, if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok under the handle SP_Filmviewers. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you next time.